Everyone, and a very happy Monday to you today. I hope everyone is doing really well. I hope you are having a great day and a great start to your week. My name is Sarah. I'm very happy to be here with you all this evening, my evening, maybe your morning, as we are going to explore some Christmas cards and other themes of cards featuring a new to me stamp set. So I'm just going to do a couple of quick switches here on the computer and then we can get started. Really nice to see folks jumping in. Good evening from Italy, says Mele. Hi, Sue. Yeah, long time no see. I've been in the U.S. for a long time, so I'm back home now. Han is our magic behind the Altenew badge tonight, so she will be keeping us updated. And I see that she has also already posted a reminder to folks that if you share today's live while we are live, you can be entered for a chance to win a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. And I know that all of us probably have a wish list somewhere and could make short work of that $15. I know I could. So I'm very excited to be here with you guys again. As Sue mentioned, it's been quite a while since I've been doing a live. I've been back home visiting family over the summer and then am now back home. And so getting back into the swing of things again. So Saskia says, good evening from the Netherlands. And it looks like we've got some folks who are sharing already. Sara, another fellow Sara, is saying hello from Utah. And it's just great to see everybody there. So Robin is in Maryland. I am in Hamburg, Germany. So it's evening time for me. So some of you are probably having a nice afternoon. Others of you maybe earlier start to the day. So wherever you are in the world, we are so glad that you're with us today. So I'm going to just jump right into, to move my teacup out of the way. And I'm going to jump right into the stamps that we'll be playing with today. So this was a new to me stamp set, which I've just been having a lot of fun with. This is the mid-century Festivities stamp set. So of course there are dies to go along with it too, and I will show you those in just a second. But I did want us to take a closer look at the stamp set itself. As you can tell, it's got a really fun 50s, 60s kind of vibe to it. And some really sweet images here. Of course, you've got a nice big tree, perfect for a Christmas tree, or of course, I'm an Oregonian, so I'm immediately thinking of lots of other kinds of cards and scrapbook pages and things that can work with a nice pine tree like this. And you've also got some sentiments on here, which are in some fun kind of mid-century fonts, but I don't think they're so specific that you couldn't use them for other kinds of themes. I've also got, let's see, I've got a fun chair on here. I see that Sara was mentioning the chair being challenging to line up. I'm going to show you a trick on the chair because I heard something on the Altenew website, that a tip that I thought I would try, and it worked perfectly. So I'm going to pass that on to you. So hang in there with me, Sara. We've also got two Christmas tree ornaments. So this round one here and then kind of an oval shaped one up here. I'm going to show you some options to do with that too. And also two gift packages. So here's one, it goes this way and you've got a ribbon here. You can also take this and turn it to the side and use this little tiny ribbon to have both vertical and horizontal gift packages. So we'll talk about all of that when we get into this. Just to give you a better idea of what some of the projects can look like, this is one of my favorites, and I'll show you an adaptation of this. I just think this is really a fun and cheerful card, one that's quite simple to do as well. This is another one of my favorites here too. So you can see not only that fun tree in the background, but also the gift packages, die cut, popped out, probably with some foam tape. Same thing, looks like we've got some dimension on the sentiment. So those are all done with the dies. So let me show you the die set that goes along. And I really like this, not only because it just makes life faster and easier than fussy cutting, especially those Christmas tree ornaments. But also, I think it gives you lots of nice options for creating some dimension on your cards. So, with clean and simple cards, I often like to use a lot of foam tape just to pop things up a little bit. Keeps the clean lines and the simple colors and things, but it still gives you a little bit of dimension. And I'm also really excited that you get the dies to go around the sentiments too, because that just gives you, once again, another option there. So there are some kinds of layering possibilities here. And of course, with Altenew, you always get the guide. So here's the chair that we were talking about earlier. I've got a personal story about this chair, and then I'll also share my tip with you. Of course, you've got the tree here as well with the um, center of it as well as the branches. I'm going to show you a kind of a watercolor effect that you can do with this. We'll take a look at the baubles and we'll also look at the gift packages. So I'm going to do a buffet sort of demonstration on some of these stamps because I did find them a lot of fun to work with. And once I got going, I was really mixing and matching and having a lot of fun. So we'll get started on that. I will show you two other stamp sets that I'm going to be including today, which are some older ones. These are some that I pulled out of my stash because they go so perfectly. So this one is the Build a Flower Poinsettia, which is a stamp set that I love. You can see I've taped up the packaging and everything. I've used this year after year. And I'm going to be using some of the sentiments in here. So not the poinsettia, but the sentiments to just to give another twist to some of the cards. Now, one thing I always like to share, especially with stamp sets that are really occasion specific or holiday specific, for example, Christmas. So sometimes folks don't make that many Christmas cards, or they want to have a little bit more versatility perhaps with some of the occasion stamp sets. So I wanted to share also how you can use the gift packages and this cool shape. I don't know what to call this shape, but I really like it for birthday cards as well. So you can get a little bit more mileage out of your stamp set. And so for that, I'm going to be using the Birthday Builder stamp set, which is one of my favorites also. So this is a great one to have on hand if you have a big family like I do and you have a lot of birthday cards to make. All righty, so having said all of that, I think we're ready to jump into some demonstrations and we can take a look at how to use some of these fun stamps. So I'm going to change my camera angle here. So hang in there with me. There we go. Okay, you can also see the glare of the lights. Sorry about that. That's all part of the video fun. Okay, so everybody seems to be doing well. I'm seeing a lot of really fun tips and things on here. Mary is talking about embossing that tree in silver. That would be really pretty. Absolutely. Boomerang shape. Thank you, Harmony. That's what I'm going to call it. I honestly couldn't think of what else to call this. And we're talking about this shape here. So boomerang, that will work. Thank you. Okay, so the first card project I want to share with you is this one here, which is a clean and simple design. So using those two Christmas tree ornaments or baubles, whatever you happen to call them in whatever part of the world you live in. And I've got them stamped in ruby red and aqualicious. And I really like these two colors together, especially for something bright and cheerful, but also, again, keeping with that clean and simple look. So these have all been stamped and die cut and then popped up on foam tape. And I'm using some gold embroidery thread just to loop this back behind here, okay? Because this is a slimline card and I've got a piece of cardstock cut slightly smaller than the front of the card so that I've glued that right on here. And a slimline card, I just thought it would be fun to try something a little bit different. So a slimline card is, of course, taller and skinnier than a kind of a typical maybe 4 by 6 inch card. So this measures for mine 3.5 inches across and 8.5 inches down. If you don't want to do a slimline card, or if perhaps there's like postal issues with mailing irregular sizes of cards, just imagine that this is kind of cropped down. So you can still do the same technique, but you would just be doing it kind of however the orientation works for you. Okay, so I'm going to show you stamping these little baubles on here. And let's see, just pop open my MISTI. And I'll put down a piece of this is just plain white cardstock. I just want us to have a look at stamping these. And I've got some options for you guys. So some other things to share with you. So I'm going to be using the same two colors, the Ruby Red and Aqualicious. For this little topper piece, I'll be using my Obsidian Black pigment ink, which is my go-to black ink. Okay, so let's grab the stamps and take a look. So here are the two Christmas tree ornaments, so the oval shaped one and the round one here. I'm going to go ahead and stamp them at the same time, of course, with different colors. I'll pop this one down and grab this round one here. And let's see, let's put this one over here. Now, if I'm die cutting, it kind of doesn't matter, you know, where they're being placed on my cardstock, but I do want to show you a couple of other things with these. So I'm leaving some space around here. Okay, close this up. And I'm going to ink up my oval ornament with the Aqualicious, one of my favorite colors from Altenew, although it's kind of hard for me to pick. And then the Ruby Red. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, Sue says the ornaments look a little big for that tree. Yeah, I think they might be. Might not be totally proportionate. Sue, good catch. But, you know, if you're doing a fun background, I think these would work perfectly. And I think actually that tree, if you had some like, I don't have any on hand, like glitter, kind of a glitter paste or white sort of snow type of product, I think that would be really fun to add some to add some snow or some clear glitter on those pine bows. It'd be really pretty. Okay, so I've got my two pieces on here. And now what I'm going to do is add the top. And actually what I'm going to do here is use the MISTI sort of. So that little black top that you can see, the top of the ornaments right here, is this little tiny piece that you see right here. Now, sometimes with really tiny pieces like this, I find it a little bit hard to get the pieces not to stick to my hands when I'm stamping with the stamp positioner. So often in this case, I'll leave my paper on my MISTI with the magnets down and then use a block. And I just find that I have a little bit more control, I suppose, when I do this. So I'm just going to position this here. I'll use my Obsidian Black. This. Ink that up. And then just pop that down. And there's our second one. So really easy to do, and it gives me some really cute instant ornaments. Now, I can go ahead and die cut these, and I'll have something, let's see, I got one die cut here, something that looks like this. Super simple to use foam tape and then secure these onto the front of a card, like so. You could have a really fun accent or border on here. But you can also do some other things with these. Oh, one thing I should point out is also on the stamp set, this oval element here can be used as a hanger. So let me show you this. I'll use it with, let's see, I'll use it with this one. And we'll have it kind of going off the paper. I'll just nest this up here. And again, using my black, I'm just going to ink this up. And we'll have it look like it's coming down from off the top of the paper. And clean that off. And then here's one other option. Now, another thing you can do, I have a really fine tip black pen, and this is not a terribly fancy pen. I picked this up actually at the grocery store in a big pack of like 25, but it's a very fine tip pen. And you can also do some pen work around here. So this is a lot of fun too. It gives you some more options. So if you want to, just take a black pen, fine tip, and go around the outside edge. You could also add in a bit of pen work going around here with these dots. You could also consider, let's see, do this one a bit more slowly and carefully than my other one. And just come around like so. And maybe accent those dots again. And then you can also add in, maybe you want to do some of your own kind of doodling around here. You can do that too. So just so that you can keep in mind that you can also do, this one looks terrible. Don't do it like that. It looks like it's a little bit sloppy. This one looks a little bit better. But that you can also do some additional pen work or highlighting or accenting on these two. So you can use that hanger. You could also use the embroidery thread option on here. Altenews got some embroidery thread. This one is the antique gold. The other one, which I think is the enchanted gold, I'm pretty much almost to the end of my spool, actually. So this is a really fun way to add a little bit of gold sparkle to your projects too. So in that case, what I do is just secure a loop of that embroidery thread to the back of my die cut piece, add some foam tape, and then just loop that around there. Super simple and easy to do. And it gives you a really nice kind of clean and simple effect, but one that's got some mid-century style to it. Now I've also got some sequins in here. These are the satin gold sequins, also from Altenew. And I just use a little bit of white glue with that, and that does the trick in securing those on there. So that is our first card project that I wanted to share with you. Then I couldn't resist going into kind of a watercolor effect. And this one is using the tree. I'm going to show you how the tree looks when you stamp it the way you're, supposed to stamp it. But also I wanted to show you another option for this, for those who like to do maybe a bit of a watercolor look. Now for this, I'm going to be using my Hunter Green dye ink. I'm also going to be using this set of water brush markers. This is the Tropical Fiesta set. I have two sets of watercolor brush markers. This is one of them, and I use them and use them and use them. They're kind of one of those tools that I have in my stash that very often when I'm thinking, oh, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this card, or I need to color an image, these come out, especially when I'm working with heat embossing, but lots of other times too. Tropical Fiesta sounds really nice, especially with the weather we're having right now. But you can use it for lots of different occasions. So we've got a nice range of colors from purple wine to crimson. We've also got really nice greens in here, the sweet leaf and the lime. These are a lot of fun to use. So I'm going to use these to accent my card to give me a little bit of watercolor effect. Now I am working onto a watercolor cardstock. Mixed media cardstock will also do the trick. If you've got something that is sturdy and can withstand being used with water, then that will work. Okay, so Let's get the stamp positioner in place here. My piece of watercolor cardstock. And I'm going to go get that tree, which is a really beautiful tree. It's a really nice size. It's a nice shape, and it can go for lots of different looks. Okay. So let's pop this down here. And ink it up. So I'm going to ink it up with the hunter green, which is a great color for trees, as you might imagine. It's just a perfect tree green color. So I'm inking this up, and when I stamp this, I'm not too worried if it's not stamping perfectly because I'm going to fill in with my water brush marker. So I'm pressing this not really firmly, not really carefully. Need to do a little bit more there. But I've got the basic outline of the tree. I've got some detail on there. It's not perfect. If I wanted to leave it as is, I would probably go back and add a little bit more ink and do that again. But for the technique that I'm doing, I don't need to do that. I'm just going to clean this off quickly. And then I'm going to add my tree trunk. So the tree trunk, probably noticed it, is right here. Looks a little bit like a lamp stand, but it's actually the tree trunk. So I'm going to carefully align this. Now here's just a tip when you're working with this tree. If you plan to die cut it, and you can if you've got the die set, what you want to make sure is that the tip of the trunk is meeting exactly the bottom of this very top bit of the tree. So this right here, you want to make sure that that aligns so that when you're die cutting, it won't be too long. Let me see if I've got one where I did it. I did it and it didn't work. So as you can see, I had the top of this way up too high and things got a little bit wonky. So you can see it's generally best, I find, especially when die cutting shapes that have a couple of different elements to them, to do a few practice rounds just to be sure. Okay, I'm not going to die cut this one, so I'm not too terribly worried about it, but I do just want to make sure that that's in there. And I'll kind of straighten this out with these long, flexible stamps. They can kind of go in different directions. So what I'll do with this, instead of inking it with ink, I'm going to use the paper bag water brush marker to stamp this. So let me find that paper bag. There we go. And I'm just going to color this kind of like you would a marker. In the olden days, I used to do a lot of stamping with dye-based markers, and it's kind of the same thing. I'm just going to put the color here. And again, I'm not worried about it being too terribly perfect because I'm going to add some more detail. So I'm just going to gently tap that in place. So I've got a very faint impression down here, which is fine. Okay. Oh, Roxy says, an Altenew Live. What are we doing today? Well, Roxy, we are working with the Mid-Century Festivities stamp set and just showing a couple of Christmas cards and some other kinds of cards too. Okay, so now I've done my basic stamping in here. And now what I want to do is add in a little bit more color with my water brush markers. So again, I'm going to come back to those green colors. And I've got the lime and I've got sweet leaf. So two very different greens, because we know that trees, of course, have multitudes of green shades in them. So this is going to be the fun part here. So I'm starting with the lime, and I'm just going to go here and kind of fill in really lightly some of those open areas and tap in some of this color. And it's going to give a little bit more texture here to the tree. Now, because this is a water-based marker and the dye ink I'm using reacts to water, I don't want to overwork this. I don't want to get too enthusiastic, but just keep in mind that this will or can potentially cause some of the dye ink to move around a little bit. So you want to be a little bit careful. Okay, so that's with my lime. And then with the sweet leaf, I'm just going to go back and add in a little bit more here too, just for some color variety. And maybe go in a little bit more toward the tree trunk, wherever you want to add color and dimension. Okay. So Vicky, you're saying that you don't use your water brush markers nearly enough. I pull these out very often. I've got 2 sets, and I just find that they're so useful for lots of things, lots of different techniques. They're one of my favorites, actually. Really, really do like them. Okay, so now I've just got my regular Altenew water brush. Normally what you would do is fill the barrel with water and then kind of squeeze it to do some watercolor painting. I generally just dip it into some water and kind of let it go from there. I don't want my brush too wet. I just want it wet enough that I can kind of scoot around some of my brown ink on here. And this will allow me to reactivate the water brush marker fluid and create the base of my tree. And you can do as much or as little of this as you want to. You can really work in some of that color. You can also go back and add a little bit more of the paper bag in here too. I have to say, when I tried this, I added too much of the paper bag. But what you could do too, it was a little bit too dark. What you could do is put a bit onto your craft mat and then dilute it with some water. A little or a lot. And that may give you another, that's nice. Yeah, that might give you a little bit more of an option here. So don't forget, you can dilute these as well. And you can do as much or as little working on the branches of the tree. You could make them really soft and fuzzy if you wanted to, or let them be a little bit crisper too. So you've got lots of options to do with this. Now with the card that I have, I'm gonna make sure I'm not getting green all over everything. I've added on here the Winter Wishes. Now this is from my, the Build a Flower Poinsettia stamp set. So there's some nice sentiments on here. There's peace on earth, winter wishes, wishing you Merry Christmas, and celebrate. So I pulled one of those off, and I just thought the script looked really nice with the kind of watercolor effect here. The thing that you do want to make sure, though, is have this completely dry before you do any overstamping. And I also use the Obsidian pigment ink for this because that is not a dye ink. So it's not going to interact and blend and blur at all. So it's going to give a nice crisp effect. But do make sure that this dries. And I often found too that sometimes I really didn't like the look of the watercolor until it dried. And so sometimes I would do some watercolor effects and think, oh, that looks awful. And then I'd come back the next day when it was all dry and it looked magically a lot better. So that's the other wonder of watercolor. So, you can get lots of different effects here. I was really having a good time with this. The more light green you work in or dark green, the more water you use. I mean, you can do a lot of really fun things like this. So this is a lot of fun. Now, I think that there's some chit chat about the water brush markers. Tracy's asking if I can zoom in. I actually can't. Sorry. Just this is the setup of my camera. It's mounted on a special thing, so it's only going to this level. So sorry about that. But what I can say is when you're working with the coloring, and Tracy was asking specifically about the coloring. Let me grab another piece of watercolor cardstock, and we can take another look at this since she was asking about the coloring, and some of you guys were talking about the water brush markers. What I like about these is that you've got lots of options in terms of coloring. Either a stamped image, a stamped and embossed image looks fantastic. A simply stamped image looks really great. But you can also take advantage of, let's see, this is the sweet leaf. I think this will show up. Take advantage of the nice fine tip that you get in here. You can do, if you're coming in at an angle, you can do like some large patches of color. Just look how beautifully that goes on. Again, you can dilute it by using your craft mat and a water brush or paintbrush will also work. But you can really be pulling in colors. One of my favorite techniques to do with this, and I wish that I had some embossing powder on hand and my embossing tool plugged in. One of my favorite techniques to use with this is to stamp and heat emboss an image like a flower, for example, and then color in with the markers because the embossing will act as a resist. So you can really do some fun things there. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the water brush markers, there's a little tab on the side that says push. You don't need to push while you're coloring. If you do that, you can get a tendency to have a big blob of color come out. The push is when you're actually taking off the little ring that you have on here when they first arrive to you, but you don't need to be squeezing it. That'll, in fact, give you a little bit more output than you might want. This is the lime. And just look, how pretty is this? And that you can, again, just add some water in here and blend those colors. Now, something like this would be a really simple and easy background to do too. Do make sure though, when you're working with this, that you have cardstock that will accept a wet medium. So nothing too lightweight. A smooth cardstock, watercolor cardstock is always really good. Or they have like pads of mixed media cardstock too. Okay, so hopefully that answers some of your questions. You know, I've got another live that's coming up on November 10th, I think, and I think I'm using one of the floral stamp sets. I haven't decided that quite yet. But if you are available at that time, then I will make sure to work in the water brush markers and some other techniques with it. So hopefully that will give a little bit of inspiration too. Ooh, I quite like this background. I like those greens. All righty. Okay, so let's move on to another card project. Well, I got stuff laying all over here. Okay, going back to our tree and then coming into our chair, our chair image. And I think who was it that was talking about the chair and said, "Oh, I need help lining up the chair." Well, I can tell you that I've got a little tip for you and one that I learned from someone else and it worked really well. Now for this card, I wanted to show you this because this is what that tree image will look like if you're not fussing around trying to make it a watercolor picture like I was. So this is just the tree stamped with olive and the stand is stamped with almond butter. And those two are a really nice combination. Let me show you these. For a kind of retro color combination that reminds me of my childhood kitchen where everything was avocado. Maybe some of you guys have memories like this too. But in this case, I thought the olive would be perfect for this tree image. And then I've got the almond butter with the tree trunk. So that color combination works really well. So if you're thinking, oh, maybe I'll go for something a bit more clean and simple, that's a good way to go. So I've stamped the tree on my background. I've got the Merry and Bright stamped with black, and then that's die cut, popped up with some foam tape. And then I've got my chair here. So let's talk about the chair, shall we? Now the chair is right here. Let's move my tree trunk out of the way. So the chair is here. You've got three separate sections to it. So you've got the base piece of the chair. Then you've got your detail portion of the chair here. Then you have the legs. Now, when I was on the Altenew website, if you look at some of the comments that people make when they've purchased a stamp set, you often get lots of really good tips from people who have used the stamp set and they're like, oh, I tried this and I found XYZ. So one of the Altenew customers who had posted said she had a tip for stamping and die cutting this. She said she stamps this portion of the chair, this portion of the chair. She does not stamp the legs until after she's die cut this. And it's much easier to line up. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to give that a try before I waste a bunch of paper on trying to line things up and getting frustrated. And it worked perfectly. So let's take a look at that. Okay, bring this back in here. We always learn from each other, don't we? This is the great thing about crafting, is that we can learn from each other and we can learn from our mistakes. And you guys can learn from my mistakes, which is another reason why I'm here. And I really like that because this is all part of the crafting world. It's where we experiment and we learn and we pass it on. Okay. So get my cardstock in here. And for this, I'm not using anything fancy. This is just a regular smooth cardstock. And I'll start with my chair silhouette. So this top piece. And I will say that this chair, I promise you, my parents had this chair. And yeah, this is in homage to my parents. I'm going to be using the same colors that we had with our chair. And I'm going to do, let's see, what was it? I am going to do olive and moss. I think this is probably the chair that we had. So olive and moss are two really nice warm, warm green colors. They are a little bit, they're a little bit shades of one another. So the olive coordinates beautifully with the moss if you're doing kind of a tone on tone effect, which is what we're going to go for here. So I'm going to be using the olive, which is the lighter of the two colors to start with. So I'm just going to pop this down here and ink this up. Yeah, so this is this is for my childhood living room. Ken and Lisa's olive and moss living room chair. Our refrigerator was also in the same color scheme. It was what they called avocado. And we had harvest gold accents in the kitchen too. Oh, and the wallpaper. Well, I could tell you more about that. So anyway, I've stamped my chair, my main piece, with the olive. And now what I'm going to do is come in with the detail portion, which is this portion here. So I'm skipping the legs, not worrying about that for right now. I'm going to come in with the detail portion. Tracy, you had the moss sofa. Oh, good. You had the matching part. We should have gotten together. Okay, and this piece I'm just going to place on top and layer it together. That's why I want to stamp this with a darker color than the olive, and that's going to be the moss. So I need to line this up, and this is where I find it really helps if I can kind of stand over it. I'm sitting at a bit of an angle, but scoot this around, and I think I'll be getting it fairly close. Okay. Now I'm going to do the detail of the chair. I might do it twice just to make sure that I get some nice detail on here. So this is the moss. And Tracy also had the harvest gold. Wow. Yeah, that was an era, wasn't it? And it wasn't shag carpet in our living room, but it was kind of close. Kind of close. Too close for comfort, maybe. Okay, I'm going to do this one more time here just to emphasize this with the moss. Okay, and so here's my chair in all its glory. Now, the nice thing about this is that they're fairly simple to line up in terms of creating that shadow effect, but I think it is just such a fun look. Now, the next step for this would be to either, if you're stamping this and you're, not going to die cut it, the next step would be then to add in the legs. And so you can see the legs are just a 3Z piece, 3 legs together. And this is maybe one part of having to line it up if you're just going to be stamping it on like directly onto your cardstock. And so here, what I always really do recommend is take a peek at where it goes on the layering guide. Sometimes if this is still a little bit hard to tell, if you're unsure, flip to some of the bigger pictures, like this one is larger, so I can see, okay, I want this back leg slightly in from the back portion of the chair, and this one is just really right on the corner of this shadow effect here. So if you're die cutting though, what you can do, grab your cutting die. Oh, I've got paper everywhere, which is nice, but it's also everywhere. Grab your cutting die and then die cut your shape. So once you have that, you'll have a piece that looks like so. And this is easier to align with the legs. Okay, 2 eyes, chair, nose, magnet mouth. Oh, yeah, I can see that definitely. It's like they're sticking out their tongue too. Okay, so here I've got the chair die cut. I've got those 2 colors on there. I'm just going to put one of the magnets on here and then take the legs and align those into the die cut area. I think I got that right. Again, it helps definitely if you can stand, much better perspective. And I'm going to do the legs. Let's see, I'll do the legs in, let's do them with honey drizzle. It's really complete, this vintage vibe. I have to say this chair was very comfortable. So, and it lasted, I think my sister took it with her when she moved out. Okay, there we go. So now we've got the legs on here and they are in perfect place. So you can see it's much easier. And this does definitely go if you're die cutting your shape. Now, if you were simply stamping onto your card or onto your cardstock, what you could also do is make a mask with a die cut piece, like die cut this out of a piece of scrap paper and use that to help position the legs in place. But I thought this was such a brilliant trick. I can't take credit for it at all, but one of the Altenewers who has this set came up with this plan, and I think it just works beautifully. So thank you to those who share. This is always great. Okay, so we have a little bit of time left, and I want to show you another option here too, because we've been talking about Christmas cards and winter themed cards, but I love working with these kinds of stamps for other occasions. And if you're like me and you have a big family, you've got lots of birthdays to make cards for, this is a great clean and simple, fun and cheerful card style that I think can go for lots of different folks on your card giving list. So this one is using, what do we call it? A boomerang shape. This is using the boomerang shape, the silhouette, as well as the outline. It's also using the gift package. This has been popped up on some foam tape, and then the happy birthday from the birthday builder set. So let's take a look at our boomerang shape first. And let's see, let me grab this. Okay, I'm going to get my eyes and nose in place here again. The magnets are strong, so I always have to be really careful with them that they don't click together. They're really attracted to one another. Okay, so I'm going to start with the silhouette of my boomerang. And I'm going to pop this down here on my cardstock. Again, I'm just using a plain white cardstock, nothing fancy. I'm just going to position this up here. And this time, I'm going to use Sunray. And ink it up. And here we go. Position this down. And I'm going to do a second pass of this. And I have to say, this card project, one of my daughter's friends, her mom had called and said, oh, there was a family emergency and could her daughter hang out at our house for a little bit before she had to go to another activity. My daughter wasn't home. I said, sure, that's fine. And so to this girl, we had like an hour and a half together. And I said, do you want to come in my craft room? We didn't really have anything else to do. And do some crafting. And she was like, yeah. And we made this card. She made it. So she's 11. And she made a card that looked just like this. So I got a chance to kind of test out my design on her. But it's simple enough that a kid can do it, and fun enough that a kid would want to do it. So now I have the outline here, and I'm going to put this not perfectly around the boomerang, but just a slightly off kilter. And that's kind of part of the fun of this look. Okay, and this one I'm going to do in black with my obsidian again. And pop this down. So right now I've got a really fun space where I can kind of plant whatever I want to go in here. Okay, let me clean this up and get this out of the way. And this piece too. I'm going to set this aside. And now I want to do the gift package. And again, you can do your gift packages vertically or horizontally, so they can be tall or they can be short and wide, whichever way you want to go. You're going to be using the same base piece and the same ribbon, but you're going to swap out the ribbon that goes around the package. Now for this, I like to start out, I think at first I was thinking I should start with the rectangle or the package, if you will. But I found that when die cutting, it helped to start with this ribbon topper here. So I'll show you this and you can see what you think. I'm going to pop that here. And this one I will do with my obsidian. Okay, there we go. And the next part of this is going to be, again, a little bit counterintuitive, but this is the way I found that it worked the best. So if I want to do the tall package, I need to use the tall ribbon. If I want to do this, positioning it this way to have it be wide, then I would use this piece right here as the ribbon. And I'm going to do my tall package. And I'm going to take the ribbon portion of this now and position this in place. I found this easier to do with the colors. So see what you think. Okay, so I've got the ribbon piece on here, and I'm going to do my package in a tone-on-tone effect. I'm going to do sea glass for the bigger box and teal cave for my ribbon. So I want the darker color to be my ribbon. Ink that up. It's another one of my favorite colors. Okay, so that's on here. And then I'll grab the box. and position this on top. And this is going to be my lighter color. So it will go over the teal cave, so the sea glass. And the sea glass is a nice soft blue. And there I have my package. Now, I can leave this as it is. I can die cut it from here. I can also, once again, add in some pen work. So because I've got a really fun kind of doodled ribbon, I can add some lines here to make this a little bit more defined. And then what I can do is take my die and die cut my shape. And I will have a piece that looks like that. All different colors work beautifully. Lots of fun that you can add these in however you want them to. And then once you have that, you can simply glue it in place on your boomerang shape. I popped mine up with a little bit of foam tape just to give it some extra dimension, added some more of those sequins, and again, the happy birthday. You can choose whatever message you want. So this could be a fun one, congratulations. It could be thank you. It could be just for you. But I think for birthday, it really does make a really kind of a fun, different combination and another nice way to use a gift package image. So for Christmas, of course, it's perfect, but it does go for lots of other things too. Alrighty, so we are coming almost to the end of our time together. I have a couple more things I want to show you. I don't think we have time for a demo, but I do want to show you these because this is, again, another way I think you can use the stamp set, or specifically the die set. So in the die set, you've got, as we talked about, you've got our beloved chair. You've got the Christmas tree ornaments, the tree, gift packages, sentiments. You've also got this starburst design, I guess. It could be used on the top of the tree, I suppose, if you wanted it to. I tend to think of it as just being sort of a fun, modern starburst effect. So that die looks like this. And at first I thought, I wonder what else you can do with that die without the stamp. Well, with or without the stamp. And if you die cut just little snips of, we've all got these little snips of paper. I've got more than my fair share. And die cut them with the starburst, you can create some really fun, quick and easy card designs. Great for birthdays, of course. So here I've just done with my offcuts. I have this teal cardstock. I've got some of this dark orange I thought was kind of fun, and then a silver cardstock in here. Simply die cut with this starburst and pop them up on foam tape. And I've accented these with some gold sequins. So the little tiny ones that are in that jar. And then again, a happy birthday sentiment. And then the other one I did was also working with Christmas. So I did them with gold and silver cardstock. Again, added in some of the sequins, and then the Celebrate, which is one of the sentiments from our poinsettia set. So really, really easy to do. Great if you need quick and simple cards. Good if you're doing batch making as well. This is a really nice, easy way to do multiples, and a good way to use up those little bits of paper that I don't think I'm the only one that has these on hand, but especially with any of those specialty or metallic papers, I save every little scrap, and this is a fun way to put them to use. So we have just about come to the end of our hour. Oh, Tracy says you could do a bunch of die cut star shapes and make it look like raised pattern paper. Absolutely. I also saw, who else? Sherry said fireworks. Sarah said suns or stars. Great idea. Oh, also dandelion, said Sarah. And snowflakes. Yes, absolutely. Those would be really pretty if we were doing like white on white or light blue on white. You could do so many different things. And just think, it's one one die out of all of these. So lots of fun and different options for us today. So I'm going to change up the camera again for us quickly. Hang in there with me. All right, so we are back face to face. And I want to say a big thank you to you for joining me this evening or afternoon or morning. So, just as a reminder, the stamps that we're working with today, the mid century festivities, which can be used for festivities that are not only Christmas, but also birthday and maybe, boy, you guys can think of lots of other things, I'm sure. So, the stamp set as well as our die set here too. Special thanks to the Alteneur who tipped me off about the legs on the chair and how to get them perfect every time. I love this. We were also working with some of the sentiments from the Build a Flower Poinsettia set, which is one that I just love and have loved for years. As you can tell, the packaging is about to fall apart. And the Birthday Builder, which is another really nice, versatile one that I have on hand and use quite often. And then finally, one other thing I'll mention is the water brush markers or the watercolor brush markers. And we'll take a look at these. I think I'm going to work these into my November live, and I think that is November 10th. So if you are playing with those, you've been working with them, then let's have a little bit of a play together and we'll see what else we can come up with. So hopefully that gives us something to look forward to. We've got a time change and darker evenings these days, so it's nice to have some crafting to look forward to. Thank you so much to Han for being our moderator this evening and getting all of the links in there and shooing the trolls away. I saw that. So I'm really glad that we have such a wonderful team with Altenew to keep everybody creatively inspired. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. It has been really fun, and it's always wonderful to see old friends and new ones too. So I'm just going to switch over, and we're going to have a little goodbye from Altenew, and then we will be ending our day. So again, thank you so much, everybody, and I will catch you again next time. Do take care.